Hey guys, welcome to reading class. Alright, so we are about to start our new story, and we're going to talk about the genre that goes with this story. Now, this story's genre is narrative nonfiction. And now we have definitely read a lot of different genres this year. We have had those made-up stories or those not true stories that are called fiction. And we've had some that are called realistic fiction, where, remember, they're made-up stories, but they could have really happened. That's realistic fiction. We also had fantasy stories. Fantasy stories were so crazy and made up you knew that they could never happen, like with flying dragons or something. That would be fantasy. And we also had fables that were fiction stories. Remember fables we just read not long ago that were made up stories that teach you a lesson. And we've also had poetry. We just got finished learning about poetry, and poetry could be fiction or nonfiction, which is the other kind of genres we've been talking about. So we have fiction, which is not real, it's all made up, and we have nonfiction, which is real. And the stories that we're going to read for this week are called narrative nonfiction. Narrative nonfiction means that it's a true story, but it tells a true story about a real person or event. Narrative nonfiction tells a true story about a real person or event. So it is a story, but it's not made up. It's true, and everything in it is true. The people in it and what they do are all true, and it really happened. So that's what narrative nonfiction is. The way that narrative nonfiction is different than the other nonfictions that we've read, the other nonfiction stories we've read have pretty much just told us true things about something. Like we read that animal baby story, or we read baby bears. Those were nonfiction stories, and they just told us true facts or true things about baby bears and animal babies. But a narrative nonfiction is going to be true, but it's going to be kind of like a story. It's not just going to tell you a bunch of true things about these people. It's going to be like a story, but it's a true story. So that's what's different about narrative nonfiction. And all of the stories that we read this week will be narrative nonfictions. They're going to be stories, but they will be about true people and true things that happened, okay? Alright, another thing that all of these stories that we're going to read are going to be people that have helped other people. So when we read these stories this week, look for ways that they have helped other people, that the people are helpful, okay? Because that's what these stories are going to be about too. And they're also going to be about people from different cultures. So let's go ahead and look at our story this week. It's called Biblioburro. Can you say Biblioburro? Good. And Biblioburro it says it's a true story from Colombia. Colombia is in South America. It's kind of down like where Mexico's at. So you're going to notice that the people are a little different. They have a different culture, just like when we talked about cultures earlier in the year. They have a different culture, but it's going to be a true story, and you're going to notice the character in this story that is helpful to other people. So after we get done reading it, we'll talk about how he was helpful, okay? So let's read Biblioburro. Deep in the jungles of Colombia, there lives a man who loves books. His name is Louis. As soon as he reads one book, he brings home another. Soon, the house is filled with books. His wife, Diana, grumbles. "What are we going to do, eat books with our rice?" Louis thinks long and hard. At last, an idea pops into his head. "I can bring my books into the faraway hills to share with those who have none. One burro could carry books, and another burro could carry me, and more books." Louis buys 2 sturdy little burros. He names them Alpha and Beta. What's a burro, guys? Yeah, these are burros. They're kind of like donkeys. He builds crates to hang on their backs and paints signs. Biblioburro, the Burro Library. Then Diana fills the crates with books. Every week, Louis and Alpha and Beto set off across the countryside to faraway villages in the lonely hills. This week, they traveled to El Tormento. When the sun burns high in the sky, Louis and the burros stop at a stream to drink the cool water. After they have their fill, Beto balks. Louis pulls and pulls on Beto's reins, but Beto won't budge. "The children are waiting for us!" At last, the burro gives in and steps across the stream. Why do you think Beto wouldn't cross the stream? Yeah, maybe he's afraid of the water or something. Maybe he doesn't like swimming. The Biblioburro continues on its way over the hills until at last Louis sees houses below. The children of El Tormento run to meet him. Louis insists on reading a story before they choose books to borrow. "Today I have a surprise for you," he says. He reaches behind the books and pulls out a bundle of masks. "Little piglets. Put on a mask and I'll read you a tale about pigs." I bet you guys can guess which story he's reading them about pigs. Look, there's 3 of them. I bet it's the 3 little pigs. When the story ends, it's time for everyone to choose a book. The children hold their books close as they say goodbye and walk home. Louis and Alpha and Beto head back, over and around the hills, across the grasslands and streams, and into the sunset. At home, Louis feeds his hungry burros, and Diana feeds her hungry husband. But then, instead of sleeping, Louis picks up his book and reads deep into the night. And far away in the hills, candles and lanterns burn as the children read borrowed books deep into their night too. The end. Oops. Did you guys like that story? Very good. And this part, it does tell us that, I read this little part. It says that, the author who wrote this story, she likes to write stories about real people. And she often finds her ideas while she's reading the newspaper. Biblioburro tells the true story of Luis Sorinio, a school teacher in Colombia. When Louis started sharing books with villages, he had 70 to share. Now he has over 4,800 books to loan. That's pretty cool, huh? So, how was Louis helpful in this story? What did he do that helped other people? Yes. We're going to talk about that later, but I think you guys are right. That's how Louis was helpful. And remember, this is a true story. Even though the pictures have been drawn and painted, it's a true story. Louis is a real man, and he really takes his Biblioburro over the hills and shares his books with kids. So it is a true story. And you could tell that they are from a different culture. People in America, we don't normally ride burros around, do we? No, we would probably drive cars, and we don't live in teeny tiny little villages in the jungle either, do we? No. That's not part of our culture, but it is their culture. So that might be why he had to ride the burro. But alright, I hope you enjoyed Biblioburro. In just a second, we'll have a class and we'll talk about these vocabulary words that you saw in the story. Remember, the vocabulary words are these yellow words that are highlighted in the story. So we'll talk about those and make sure we know what all those mean, okay? Alright, I'll see you on a little while. Bye.